Man, it's like these matches keep getting in the way of the real story. Chelsea traveled to Carrow Road and emerged 3-1 winners. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour. SCN! Drogba! Lampard! That could be the championship!
Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P, for what is another Chelsea match review, but I would be silly if I was trying to avoid the elephant in the room today. So much more going on off the pitch. We're going to have to focus on that. But before we get into all that, please do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification button if you are a real bad man. And I want to let you guys know about my sponsor. They go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do. Hit them up. The link is in the description. Okay, so Chelsea traveled to Carrow Road to face Norwich and emerged 3-1 winners. Goal scorers, Nathaniel Chalobah, Mason Mount with a banger, and then we got another one from Kai Havertz. Man, what is that, 3 and 4 right now? This guy's on fire. You know, just finding form at the right time of year, as I said before. So yeah, Chelsea win 3-1. Now, fellas, I'm not going to lie to you. There's not really much to speak on this game as far as tactics go, especially with the backdrop of what's happened today with the owner being sanctioned. So we're just going to quickly touch on what happened within the game. Chelsea dominated for most of it. Then we're going to get into the other things, the peripheral, the things that are surrounding the club right now that could very much, play a big part in what the season's going to look like and what subsequent seasons are going to look like as well. So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at the game, but for the most part, we're going to be looking at this Roman Abramovic situation. Okay, so Chelsea came out in what looked like a 3-4-3, but really didn't play like that once again. It looked like Jorginho in solo 6, especially in the first half, with Kovacic and Mason Mount playing the attacking 8s, obviously flanked by Sal Niguez and Azpilicueta out wide, who basically hugged the touchlines and got up and down the pitch. And then, of course, we had Kai Havertz and who am I forgetting here? Of course, Timo Werner in the attacking positions. So to me, it looked like a more of a 3-5-2 with, of course, the attacking 8s, Mason Mount and Kovacic playing in the half spaces, getting on the half turns and whatnot. And, of course, I saw Niguez, like I said before, and Azpilicueta basically just playing as midfielders, hugging the touchline and providing the width. And, of course, Timo Werner was basically camped out on the left side, but really didn't play as a winger. He was more of a wide attacker. And of course, Kai Havertz playing his traditional number 9 role. And it was effective for large portions of the game, not because Chelsea were great, but because, let's be honest, Norwich is just not a very good side. They just left so much space for Chelsea to exploit, especially in the half spaces. And all sorts of joy from Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, and of course Kovacic when he connected in the midfield as well. They did send 2 to press our back line, our back 3, but it just wasn't really effective. And as soon as we passed the first wave, once again Chelsea were just galloping into space, and time again, like just wave after wave of attack when we're getting into their final third, and just basically right into the teeth of the defense with zero resistance from that midfield. Zero resistance. So Chelsea basically bossed the majority of the game just because they had more in the midfield. They had more quality in the midfield than Norwich and basically used it quite well. I think the disguising of Mason Mount's role was really very difficult for Norwich to deal with. And when Timo Werner started coming a little bit deeper, it made it even harder because it forced one of their defenders to come out and engage in the half spaces. And there was a few opportunities where Chelsea almost got in behind because the defenders were being dragged out, and you expected someone like Sal Niguez or Kai Havertz to make that, that sweeping run to get in behind. And there's a couple occasions where they almost did, but unfortunately the pass was a little bit off. But overall, I mean, there's not really much to say about this game. It was really men against boys. Chelsea in great form recently, just continuing on with that, and Norwich just, basically relegation fodder right now. They're not getting out, and they played quite similar to a team that is facing relegation and don't seem to have the passion or energy in getting out of it. So, it really didn't play like a game that was serious on both ends. It was just basically Chelsea, dominating the play, basically controlling it from minute 1 to minute 90. There were spells in the second half when Norwich got their goal from the penalty kick where you felt like they might be able to get back into the match, but ultimately we had too much on the bench as well. Obviously Conte came on and slowed things down, controlled things again. And, Romelu Lukaku, despite not scoring, did give them something else to think about offensively. So, Chelsea just dominated the performance, and I don't think that there's much more to say about that. Now, before I get into the real topic of the day, I wanted to touch on Chelsea's leadership, and I want to specifically speak of Thomas Tuchel, who has navigated some serious minefields the last few weeks. Chelsea, every week it seems like there's a new bomb that's being dropped, and Thomas Tuchel just elegantly skates past it, gets the team ready, focuses the team, and gets them ready for the big matches and whatnot. And, hats off to him. He's a true leader, and he is the reason why this Chelsea squad are still basically assembled, still feeling like they're in major competitions and whatnot, despite what's happening in and around the club. And what a calming presence he is, like true leader, a guy that has really been like the nucleus of what this entire Chelsea Football Club is about right now. It's basically centered around the magic of Thomas Tuchel, his ability to obviously control situations, dominate situations, take the attention away from the off-field stuff and bring it right into focus for the players and whatnot. And again, just pulling all the strings magically, not just him, but of course you also have leaders like Thiago Silva, who again just exudes quality all over the pitch. Anytime he's in a game, that you have a leader, a guy that's a warrior, battle-tested, and a guy that is definitely just shuts out all the outside noise and makes it about the game. And man, is he a calming presence on the pitch. Obviously, we didn't have Rudiger today, played with Christensen and Chalobah, two not necessarily inexperienced, center backs flanking him, but man, did he marshal them well. And, you can't say enough about him. Just his quality, his leadership, his composure, his poise, all of that stuff is exactly what Chelsea need in this particular moment when you have so much noise off the pitch. So I just wanted to give a shout out, obviously, to Thomas Tuchel for his leadership, his guidance, and his eloquence in these very difficult moments. And of course, Thiago Silva for just being the calming presence on the pitch, a true leader. Okay, we got to deal with this. This is not going anywhere. Obviously, the UK government laid sanctions on Roman Abramovich, and that is going to have an immediate impact on Chelsea Football Club and the operations as well. First of all, I don't know much about this. Obviously, I'm not I'm not very scholarly when it comes to, politics or when it comes to, sanctions of this sort. To my best of my knowledge, it's basically down to the fact that Roman Abramovich has had ties to the Kremlin, and they see him as a Kremlin sympathizer on some level. If you read the actual sanctions, it doesn't really read very well. On another day, if it wasn't just with the club at heart, I think that Roman could probably fight this and potentially win. Because if you read it, they mentioned somewhere where his company, I think it's Evraz, which is a steel company, they have no real proof of any of the stuff, the allegations that they have. They're basically saying there's potential that, the Russian government bought steel from Evraz, from Roman Abramovich, and, they could be using that to make tanks. But there's no definitives anywhere on that. It's basically just saying, well, we feel like this could be happening, so we're just going to sanction him based on the fact that we feel strongly that he's connected to the Kremlin. But the actual hardcore physical evidence is just not there. So it is a little bit disheartening, but there's no doubt that Roman saw this coming, because obviously he instructed Rain to put together a package, a portfolio for people to examine to sell the club. And, they wanted this sale to happen really fast, extremely fast, to get ahead of the impending sanctions from the UK government. And, it's been tumultuous ever since. We've heard owners like Bowley and Wies trying to come through and buy the club, not really trying to meet the demands that Roman set out. We saw, I think, the Turkish guy, I'm not sure of his name, AG Group, I think he runs, or the AB Group. And he was very outspoken the last couple of days about, being very close to buying the club, and making an announcement today, in fact, about the purchase of the club before, but of course the UK government swoop in and nail us with sanctions before the sale, according to him, of course. Who knows how close he was, but assuming he is accurate, then they basically came in at the 11th hour and sanctioned him before he can make the sale. Now, what does that mean? It basically means to me that obviously Chelsea's operations as a football club have been stunted quite a bit. Obviously, they're not stopping the full functioning of the football club, but they have limited what they can spend and what they can't spend on. Obviously, there will be no renegotiations of contracts of players, so the likes of Rudiger, Azpilicueta, Christensen are likely having to wait until maybe until their contracts actually run out before they can renegotiate the club if they choose to do so. The sanctions do last from now until May 31st. So even if Chelsea wanted to, enter into some sort of like agreement with players, the window for transfers isn't open until I think July 1st or something like, or June 30th anyway. So by then sanctions, if things go well, will be lifted and Chelsea will be able to operate as normal. But in the interim, they're not allowed to, sign players. They've restricted their travel budget, all sorts of things. Clearly the operations of the club are still going on. There's about 1,000 people that are employed by Chelsea FC, and they will be allowed to operate and pay their workers and whatnot. But they're not going to be allowed to, engage in any profit making. So no shirt sales. No actual season no tickets being sold at grounds. Only season ticket holders will be allowed to go. And again, it's the same thing. Like anything that has to do with making any sort of like profit for Roman Abramovich has been curtailed, and the club have to operate on whatever existing budgets they have. So no influx of cash if that need be the case. Obviously, I don't think that Chelsea will be looking to, they shouldn't be in a position where they need Roman to, supplement income to get to the end of the year anyways, because we make a lot of revenue. We have a lot of revenue streams anyways, and, there'd be no reason for Roman to dip into his pockets to, make sure that the staff is being paid for correctly, especially with the limited budgets that we have right now too. With that said, the beat just keeps going on. And I know I've spoke on this before, just the fact that like corporate sponsors are going to be looking at the situation right now and wanting, obviously everything's about image right now. They're going to be wanting explanations. They're going to be wanting to distance themselves from this. And of course, we heard today that 3 and potentially Hyundai are looking at the situation. With 3, they've already said that they do not want their logo associated with the Chelsea kit for the next little while. Cowardly, if you ask me, because if they're really about it, they would have just said, you know what, we're just going to rescind our deal altogether. We do not want to do this. But they're basically just waiting until Chelsea's in the clear before they slap their 3 back on our shirt again. So I think that's a little bit cowardly, but not unexpected, not unanticipated. As I said before, I really did anticipate Chelsea were going to have a lot of problems with the corporate sponsors, just because there's a lot of noise around the club right now, both whether directly or indirectly, it's negative, and corporate brands do not like that at all. So I expected something like this to happen. Whether or not this ends the partnership between Chelsea and 3, neither here nor there, I don't know. But I'm fully in anticipation of Chelsea being able to find another shirt sponsor, in the very near future, should 3 not want to continue. As a brand, Chelsea obviously are at their lowest, but at the same time, this shouldn't really be a long-term situation. Obviously the Chelsea club is still up for sale, and of course, Roman still cannot profit from the sale of the club. And the only way the club can actually even be sold right now is if the UK government get involved, which is kind of odd. But again, I really do believe that Roman and his group saw this coming, and they've already made the steps to ensure that Chelsea could have the right sort of ownership in place. Because even though the UK government are going to be involved in the selection process, I'm sure Chelsea have already vetted who they'd like to take over as the club. And I really, really highly doubt that the UK government are going to step in and negate any of the positive talks that have happened so far in the interest of the club. Because let's face it, Chelsea Football Club are a blue chip asset, not just for Roman Abramovich, but for the UK in general. These are one of the elite clubs in world football, and they employ thousands of people, not just in Chelsea, but in the UK, and abroad. And you have to think that the UK or the UK government have to be taking that into consideration when they're dealing with this topic. Obviously we've never seen a situation like this before, where a club owner has been sanctioned by the government, and this is just uncharted water, which is why nobody's really well versed on what can happen and what can't happen. We did hear that obviously the club and their trustees and their directors are meeting with the UK government, I think today, and they're going to be looking to get some of these license restrictions lifted. I think a lot of it will have to do with security and travel for the most part, and making sure that staff are well compensated for their work and whatnot. But outside of that, I don't know what else could be done. And again, like I said, I'm not really well versed on it. What does this mean for Chelsea going forward? Well, yes, it is a very murky situation we find ourselves in, and we have to, tread carefully, because we're at the mercy of the UK government right now. I highly doubt they'll get to the point where they put Chelsea in administration, just because it's one of these entities that is just too big to fail. The UK need Chelsea Football Club. The UK people need Chelsea Football Club. So I don't think that there's going to be any situation where Chelsea will go into any sort of administration. But at the same time, I am wary of the fact that the UK government will have their hands in picking who the next owner will be. And with the relations not being great with some of these places that we've already been linked with, likely with Turkey, and not so much with China, but obviously with Saudi Arabia and whatnot, I don't know what the future will hold. Like, I'm hoping that the vetting process that Roman and the team have done was good enough and meets the requirements for the UK government. But again, that is just a minefield that I don't want to walk down. I think Chelsea's going to be fine. I really do believe that. It's just this next few periods, this next few months are going to be very, 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 tumultuous, and we're going to have a lot to deal with on the backdrop of football. Not just trying to qualify top four, not just trying to win another Champions League, FA Cup, and whatnot. We're going to have a lot of noise around this club, both mostly negative, and we're going to be hearing a lot of things come out about the owner. We're going to be hearing a lot of things about our corporate sponsors wanting to pull out, and all of that noise is going to lead to all sorts of turmoil on and off the pitch. Who's going to be able to sign their contracts and whatnot. So I'm glad that we have Thomas Tuchel, because like I said before, I really do believe that he's a calming presence in and amongst all of this stuff, and he's the kind of guy that takes attention away from the off-field stuff and brings it back to the club, and knows how to shoulder the burden and shelter it a bit. So I think we're in good hands there. Without saying too much more, I do believe that we have to be very, very careful about our next moves here, and we have to take in consideration that this is not something where it's just going to go away overnight. This is a very serious issue that Chelsea find themselves into, Roman finds himself into, and unfortunately Chelsea have been wound up into this unbelievable conflict. But I'm 100% with the Ukrainians, and I'm not against the sanctions altogether if what they say is in any way plausible. Like it only makes sense to sanction. But at this point in time, where the sale of the club was almost imminent, it seems like this is just seems a little bit like a bit of tribalism, where some of these MPs and whatnot are pushing for this for the betterment of their clubs, their London-based clubs, more so for the betterment of the UK as a whole, and the Ukrainian people who are suffering mightily. Because let's not forget that Roman promised that what he was going to do with the profits of the sale, he was going to send that money to the victims of the war, and that has now been curtailed by the UK government. So, you know, I don't know where their intentions are. I know that what they had to do what they had to do, and we're going to have to come out of it in some point. But guys, I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to get too much further into this without knowing more about what the actual sanctions entail and whatnot. And we're not going to know that as in this very moment. We're going to hear more as the, you know, the days, minutes, months, weeks pass by. But, you know, ultimately, I think Chelsea Football Club are going to be fine. You know, we will find new owners, and who's to say that they won't invest heavily in this club and make us, you know, the same powerhouse that we've been, you know, under Roman Abramovich. But we just got to stay strong and not get caught up into the mudslinging and the silly debates that are occurring in social medias right now. Just stay clear about it. It's not our time to speak. Just let it all play out. And then if we come out clean in the end, that's our chance to shine. But guys, until then, keep the blue flag flying high. Up the Chels. Peace.